the one thing which we realized was like it's not about how good you are with the skill when you begin with, right? You obviously take up skills of drawing and you kind of envisage it and take it and make it your own, but it's about what you're trying to communicate and how simply you can put it in the best possible method, whether it's a sketch or whether it's a diagram or whether it's any rendering of people with them.
Extremely important to exchange notes globally, because what we are facing is not just, we are not in silos here, and that learning will make us richer.
So urban designers have a unique sort of advantage that we talk about cities and everything, and we should embrace it that anything and everything that happens in a city is our business.
Welcome to Shaping Cities. In this podcast brought to you by City Collab, we spotlight the practice of communication in city planning and development and its vital role in bridging ideas with action. Our guests today are Mansi, Sahu, Sarfaraz, Momin, and Mahesh Waghdhare from Studio Pod. In just over a decade, Studio Pod has established itself as one of the leading urban design practices in India. Their work spans public spaces, waterfronts, master plans, and strategic visions for cities and neighborhoods. One of their most celebrated projects, the One Green Mile in Mumbai, has transformed a dead space beneath a flyover into a vibrant public space. In today's episode, we'll explore with them how, for urban designers, communication is a powerful tool, whether it's creating vision renders that resonate with communities, coordinating among multiple professionals and stakeholders to bring a project to life, or sharing knowledge with the wider peer community. At every stage, communication is key, and we are very happy to invite the three of them to our episode. Welcome to the podcast team Studio Pod. So thank you so much, Mansi, Mahesh, and Sarfaraz for joining us. But we were just speaking earlier. All three of you have, US degrees. You studied US, urban design in the US at, I think, Berkeley, Columbia, I think Ann Arbor, right, Michigan. And so, what inspired all three of you to come back to India and start a urban design practice in India?
I think one thing common is probably the movie Swades that happened to release, that
Yes.
we all loved, and it was always a common thing that kind of, when we met, resonated with us. We
Mhm.
came back and to work in urban design for India, um, and to be with our family, not be far away from our family. That's also common for all three of us,
Mhm.
and to create an urban design practice that is independent of architecture, and collaborative, and something that works at all scales.
While I was working in the US in Boston, I was working on projects in India and in other areas, and I realized the calling was there. It was when I worked on projects in India, I felt like there was this need to go back to see that a lot of change is happening, and I wanted to be part of that change.
Something when we started off as a practice, there was no specific kind of precedent, right? All of us left what we were doing in the US and came back with X amount of experience. And then when we started off Studio Pod, we wanted to do something specifically in urban planning, urban design, and not go the traditional route of architecture and then urban design. More purely because we wanted to focus on the skills that we had developed and learned outside, then come back and see how we can apply them in India as well. And also in a way that which is like professionally, when you see things, wanted to actually bring about some change, whether it's on ground or whether it's in the profession itself.
So true. Thank you so much. And it's funny, Mansi, you mentioned Swades. I think it came out when I was also in the US, and it had a I also had a
I
goosebumps moment when I saw it. It's like
I blame it on A.R. Rahman. Actually, I don't blame it on Swades specifically, but his music in Swades was the reason. It's-
yes. But it also had that quality of, let's use our skills, let's use,
Yeah.
what we are good at to come back. And I'm sure it's been so rewarding for all of you. I think you wouldn't, I mean, you couldn't have, like probably the last 13 years have, probably proved you right, that this is the best that could be. So let's start when you moved back. You were new to the city, to the profession, and I heard you, Mansi, speak once at, I think, a conference at Sept, and you spoke about the early days of hustle, that you were doing sub contracts and little things for larger projects, working with city government. So I think I found it very inspiring. So can you recall some of those early days, and especially the role of communication? What made you stand out? Did you have decks prepared? Did you go, did you have like a little bit 2-minute thing prepared about you, or you had wonderful drawings? So what were some of the tools that you used to slowly set kind of your space in the profession in India?
Right. So when Sarfaraz, Mahesh and I started, they were 30 and I was 28, 27, 26. I was 26 actually. And I was single, and we all started, and we knew that we're not rich. We knew we're not like connected. We knew we don't know anyone. But the one thing that we knew we had was the skills and the tools that we need. So I think that was the driving factor.
Mm-hmm.
And we were hungry for work. All three of us were extremely hungry. We were very focused on what we want from the first year of Studio Pod. So we knew that we had to pitch, but the aim was not to get projects or money. The aim was to find five other people who are have the similar aspirations and be able to pay them, so that we can grow our team. Because we knew that we need more people like us, and that would help us get more projects. And so we decided, the three of us, to go out everywhere to meet people. I have stalked people to get work also. We have and we just Our pitch was very simple: just please get us involved in any way you can. Give us a seat at the table, and then you decide what our scope needs to be. But please try to use our expertise. And it was an uphill climb, because urban design was done for free. People were used to it being free. Master plans are done free with architecture, so they were like, why do I need to pay separate when I'm getting it? So it was an uphill climb, but I think the fact that few people trusted us, and then they figured, and we also got confidence out of that. So we also realized, okay, we are not dreaming. We do bring in a different perspective, and it is possible in India, to have conversations about public realm, to have conversations about public private relationship, to have conversations about resiliency, and people are open to it. So I think it was a very important year. We started out of an extra bedroom that I had in my house,
The
where
railway photo.
in my mom's house actually. And Sarfraz and Mahesh would reach on time, and I used to always reach late. But we were well fed by my mother for the first 1 year. So I think it was a very fun year. We did almost 50 pitches, and we must have converted like five.
Two.
Yes.
Yeah, five or two to five. But all 50 pitches got the same amount of love.
We spoke to a lot of people, and they said you might have to do only interior, sort of apartment interiors and whatnot, because urban design only comes with contacts or comes with either connections that you have to have, political or otherwise. And that day we together decided that, okay, we're going to give it a shot. Second is that we'll not take up anything that will sort of digress our attention from the main motive of moving back. And to put things in perspective, I had a really good job. I was being promoted. My family was financially doing. Zora and I both were making good money, and we left all of that. I just had a daughter. She was 5 months old when I moved back to India. And the funny story is that she was born in the US, but I went all the way to New York to get her an Indian passport. And when I reached the embassy, they said, what kind of a parent are you?" And and they were just completely baffled by the fact that I'm asking for a form that they did not know where it was kept. So they took a good 2 hours to find the form to fill for an Indian passport. I was that clear that this is my chance. My daughter is young. I might have this window of 3 years where I could, 3 to 4 years, if I fail. Um, there's always something that I can do, but I
Hmm.
really wanted to give it a full shot. And if that was the urgency with which I came back, I wanted to make sure I did not digress or dilute the intent. The intent was to see if I can set up an urban design practice. To give it up, to give all of this up and then come back and practice interiors and architecture was something that I would have done, wouldn't have preferred. So that was one of the things that motivated, made us go really strongly. The other were all the people and the negativity around us was really interesting. Uh, it was it was something that drove three of us together in those foundational years. I think
Yeah.
Mansi and Mahesh and I are really, really different personalities, but this really bonded us together in ways that I don't think any other situation would have.
Hmm.
We did, the only thing that we knew what how to do was draw. We spent a lot of time thinking, sort of evaluating what have we done, and then the only way to communicate was drawing. And then we realized that when you put all of these thoughts in place, the outcome that came out surprised us as well. So in the first year, we produced one of these toolkits for open spaces for a city in the north,
Mhm.
and that toolkit till date is being used for some of our examples that we even cite today. So the quality of graphics, the quality of the work, the profoundness that we put in those things, so that toolkit really became toolkit for studio pod. It wasn't just for open spaces, it became a toolkit. It was about resiliency, our understanding about cities, everything. So that those were some really key moments I feel for studio pod, that really those initial years, a, they bonded us in ways that we couldn't have. B, we produced some of our most profound work in the initial phases. And C, we got to know each other like so closely, uh,
So
and it still has this amazing bank of memories that we have, that sealed this partnership.
So there was a lot of things that we were trying to handle at that time. And again, as I said, now in hindsight, it seems all click, but we had to put in a lot of effort in our hours at that time, and also passion in a way that we could bring it all together.
Right. I think that's what is, the rigor of the early days is what, sets the tone. And I think for, so I think I'll just use that as like Sarfaraz and Mahesh, you both mentioned, I think the one tool that you were very confident, and as urban designers we know how to draw, right? And we need know how to visualize. I feel that drawings are the most, I think it is
yeah.
our most powerful tool for communication, right? I think how you represent things. And I think urban designers also have this challenge, um, that you have to communicate in a way that you also build support for the larger community. Unlike architects, which is they're working on, a smaller project, everyone in that city has to see themselves in that rendering. People who live in, villas as well, but people who also, kind of sell their goods on streets, and so many things. Indian cities are so diverse. So let's come to drawings. What has influenced your way of communicating and, your way of drawing? Is there a studio pod way of illustration drawing, or an approach that you take, to communicate your visions to multiple stakeholders?
One of the universal things that has worked across every sector of the world is where most sort of impressive firms in the world are doing great drawings.
Hmm.
And we've been using drawings and a visual aid medium
Hmm.
to talk to the larger masses.
Hmm.
It's what art does. It is what um, visual communication does to people, is that it reaches a chord without words, without language. It transcends all boundaries, and most people can uh, understand some bit of it. The other bit is they can interpret it also in their own way. So that was something that we knew was a powerful tool. There is a studiopod style.
Hmm.
The studiopod style is we talk in diagrams, and we communicate in diagrams.
Hmm.
We actually do not, we do renderings as well, but a lot of our thought process, a lot of critical thinking, very, very important things are simply communicated through really good diagrams, and infographics and storytelling. All of that were converted in some way or the other into diagrams, and that is why the toolkit still remains one of these things that we cherish even now. Is because we took a very complicated sort of challenge of thinking about a whole city and this entire open space network, and we made a toolkit with almost comic like book. We inculcated this culture right in the beginning. Mahesh had a very individualist way of drawing, his own individual way of diagramming. Mansi has her own individual way of diagramming. I have my own personality. And we let our personality come out through our diagrams. And this became a really interesting cultural sort of pillar in at StudioPod, where anyone who joins us bring a little bit of them to the studio through their diagrams. And that I think has been one thing in communication that has kept it fresh, that has kept it unique, that has kept it, non-repetitive. There is no one single module that you would see repeats. I think some colors we prefer, but other than that, you see diagrams of today from StudioPod and you see diagrams from 5 years ago. The depth is there, but the representation changed, it modified, it became something else. So I think that I don't know if that answered your question. It was a really long way of communicating.
Many things, but yeah, essentially the power of drawing, and like you said, diagramming is something that you use a lot to also clarify thinking process. And you also mentioned the toolkit as one of the those pieces. So Mansi and Mahesh, also to you, do you recall any pieces of visual communication over the last 13 years that have like really you feel that have helped communicate and build support for the idea, and like that inspired people, could be decision makers or people that you're speaking to also.
I would actually like to talk about not it was a visual communicative tool, but
Mm,
not a very very powerful one which we have done like the toolkit or the other
mm,
ones, but a simple stakeholder exercise for Apli Mumbai. This was where actually the Portland's initiative of Mumbai, where the entire waterfront was being looked at to re kind of imagine, and we were not the urban designers fully going in planning, but we were one of the stakeholders with a much larger group, and
right,
that was a kind of a powerful turning point for us. Like simple sketches. I remember one sketch Sarfaraz drew just like a sectional skyline from the west side of the city to the eastern side of the waterfront, and one of the diagrams that I made was just like a actually literally an hour's work of allocating on a plan what could it be imagined. The point was these were not like laborious efforts like what we did for the toolkit, but in that time, how could we communicate what we wanted to talk about? And some of those actually became like the talking point in that stakeholder kind of conferences, workshops that we kind of continued to do, and much larger gatherings that we did. But these the one thing which we realized was like it's not about how good you are with the skill when you begin with, right? You obviously take up skills of drawing and you kind of envisage it and take it and make it your own, but it's about what you're trying to communicate and how simply you can put it in the best possible method, whether it's a sketch or whether it's a diagram or whether it's any rendering of people with them.
so powerful, right? When you see people using your drawings and that way of representation, I think it also goes back to what Sarfaraz said. It's you don't need a language bad you don't need any language to communicate, and people can see themselves in it. Thank you so much. Mansi, do you have a particular example of of
I
a process or a drawing?
I actually, I think for a lot of the drawings, we have used them as elevator pitches also, because they are like hooks. And whether it's a video or whether it's a great diagram or whether, depending on the stakeholder, sometimes engineers are most excited about a clean AutoCAD drawing, and any drawing of Studio Pod that you see, whether it's a diagram or an AutoCAD construction drawing, will have the same amount of love and clarity. And that's been a key essence, because the way a money shot or like a rendering works is also like a hook, and it just gets somebody interested to see where am I in it. So whether it's a rendering, or whether it's an AutoCAD drawing, or whether it's anything, I think key has been to keep people engaged. And some people are engaged with 2D drawings, some are like movies, and we have done it all. For some, we have created comic books. We have also created an entire like what do you say, like a spread. Some builders loved our hand sketches. They were like, we have not seen hand sketches in like years. And so because that was their communication tool, so I think we use it as a hook, to be able to hold a conversation, and to be able to have a conversation. And as long as that is maintained, and not something half-hearted, I think we are all happy.
So amazing. I think beautiful note, and I think especially Mahesh's also, aspect that some drawings you can take time and be meticulous, but also when you are in a workshop situation, those sketches become probably the key tools for bringing people together and starting a dialogue. So thank you so much. I think very inspiring. I'm sure many listeners will take away a lot from it. Definitely diagramming, and also like Mansi, you said, change the tool probably is also one of the things that I'm listening you say. Understand what the audience might resonate with. Sometimes it might be sketches or films or hand sketches, and kind of
Absolutely. You cannot expect the same amount of love that we have for a printed drawing,
yes.
for every person to have. So you have to read the room, you have to see who is the main decision maker, who is going to help you bring this vision to reality, and you have to communicate with that person. Even if it's
Absolutely.
a street play, I'm up for it. Like
Yes.
anything.
True. Urban design in India is also a lot of it still is in the form of reports and guidelines and toolkits. But what we really need is projects implemented. Whether it's a township, but done well. Resource conscious or good streets, good public spaces, and that's where these skills come in. You have to be able to speak up, bring those uncomfortable points out. One question here, I think a lot of times we as urban designers as and people who know and understand our cities, we often go with an idea or a vision. uh, and I've heard a lot of times that when working with governments, especially in India, and one would love to hear your experience, sometimes it's not this, it's diluted, it keeps getting I wouldn't say diluted, maybe you will have better examples, maybe negotiated. Do you agree that getting something built to like 75% um, of what the original idea was is like is the way to move forward? Or how has it worked with your practice when especially it's very challenging with getting decision makers on board?
Here's what we think. When you so we initially, like, we started the conversation, it was very difficult to be at important tables for us. We weren't there. We really worked hard to get a seat at the table. When we finally got a seat at the table, we made sure that the vision that you spoke about, Vani, that we bring to the table was really bombastic. Like, was really one of what we call in our studio is, Daniel Burnham used to say, blood stirring. Make no small plans, and it has to be blood stirring in some way or the other, where it is um, sort of almost impossible to achieve. So if you set the vision to such an extent that it is almost impossible to achieve, and you achieve 70% of it, you've probably done a ridiculously good job. So one of the ways is to aim really high, bring one of the biggest, boldest ideas that you think will shake up the room. Um, First, lay that down, and then figure out a way in which we can navigate and reach there in some way or the other. In our experience with government or with private developers, actually, with private developers is even more challenging than governments.
Okay.
End of the day, a lot of government plans can be up in the air, and can be really big, bold, but they do have the resources. but a lot of private developers actually have to make it happen in a business setup and in a private sort of ecosystem that will hold them accountable a lot more. And sometimes it has been more challenging to convince private developers to do ridiculous things, and that is where we've also sort of have succeeded in some way or the other in developing these really radical ideas. For that, we had to come up with even more radical stories. So and communication tools as well. Most of the people would want to attempt at least to get to 70%. But if our aim is 150, that 70 of 150 is still more than
Even
100%.
amazing. I think that's a
That,
fantastic insight. No, aim high and like just have those bold ideas presented convincingly, and then work off of those. And then even if you negotiate, you're negotiating, you have anchored something, and then it's within that. But have you any Mansi, Mahesh? Do you have insights on like Sarfraz spoke about private developers, but how does it work with, let's say, the public sector? Do you think speaking about your work to wider audiences, so I think we've spoken about how to get projects implemented and vision, but do you think opening up that to peers, larger audiences, getting things done, has that helped? Do you see there is a shift towards a greater recognition for the profession, even amongst and other urban design practices maybe coming together to reflect on these issues? How do you build that? And do you think speaking about your work to larger audiences, maybe on digital channels, but also in universities, schools, students, and really speaking about what does it mean to practice urban design in India, has helped build, and we are seeing that shift now, probably as we speak, that it is getting its recognition as a profession?
Yeah. Can I start this one?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I think, the conversation is not just about India. The conversation is really global because the kind of challenges we face is not something that is unique to India. There are
Mhm.
so many countries in the world that relate to us. And the One Green Mile, actually, one of some of the best forums that I've presented are African and non-Indian forums, because they have also related to it. And I think the idea of getting your conversation higher, and not to the same group. I think it's not about preaching to the choir, but it's about making it simple enough so that we understand. So and we can also understand people's approach or their. So we have learned that sometimes we use technical words and somebody who's non-technical in the room does not understand. So that way I have realized that there is an importance of conversation. It is also an important thing to talk about it in a simplistic way, and extremely important to exchange notes globally, because what we are facing is not just, we are not in silos here, and that learning will make us richer. So I actually think that it is a very good thing. We have done podcasts with like Canadian firms, and they have related to density, they have related to different things in a very different way. And urban design is about that. So, like Satra said, it is not about repeating the same mistakes again. So, how do we like learn from each other and kind of create a global platform? That's like something that would be amazing through conversation.
One interesting thing is what you also mentioned about the whole social media experience, right? People do recognize that urban design in India, and not only us, there's several other firms coming up now who are doing good work. And when you make the noise right, you have to make the noise heard, and social media is the way right now. And that's where people will understand and reach that good things are happening in India as well. And you have to make that more public and have to reach out and talk about it. So engaging and doing things is one thing, but to kind of making it recognize and talking that also good things are happening in India. It's not all chaos and all kind of
Yes.
issues that are being talked about all the time.
Absolutely, like you said, I think it's a challenging profession. I think sometimes things move slow, but we have to be optimistic. And like you said, also speaking about good work that is being done, sharing reflections, all of that. Like Mansu also says, maybe not in India. I think a lot of other countries which are in a development trajectory similar to ours are also looking at India, Africa, and what we are doing now. So it becomes, it's also that responsibility to also come up with models which are also resonating probably, with these countries. So it's fantastic to hear you say that, engaging with work is important, but also I think how do we build like a momentum for, things that happening in India, moving in India. I'm sure there are many, many people who are concerned about this, who want to do good. How do you build coalitions? All of that is part of building that momentum. Sarfraz, do you want to add anything to probably also social media? Because I think that is something I'm at City Collab. We often see that, there was a way of looking at architecture and urban design, let's say a few years back, a decades back, that the work speaks for itself. And that was a different time that, so I think a lot of architects, urban designers, I still feel often shy away from embracing aspects of the digital mediums or also social media. But I've heard you, I mean, it's very inspiring to say that it's powerful, and if you see meaning in it and usefulness in it, in speaking about. But do you have reflections on that, Sarfaraz? Do you come across that still, or times have changed now?
No, I think it's. I was actually one of the panel members last week on a media conference.
Hmm.
Out of the blue, got invited to, and it was the theme was sustainability. So they had invited cross-sectoral sort of experts to talk about sustainability in a media and communications conference.
Hmm.
It's just it was phenomenal. What two things happened? One is that you realize that if you are talking amongst yourself, which is in silos, in architecture forums, in urban design forums, you get to see only one aspect of change that is happening. When we go there, you find out, when you sort of mix around, you talk to different people. At this conference, there were so many people so passionate about sustainability, about resilience, about how we should grow, about how what is happening. And they found also that they also were relieved to see that there is some work happening in city planning and urban design. You see that there is
It's
a gulf.
something that you
There
don't
is
see that often.
there is a gulf which every one of them are working in their own sort of silos. People are not talking to each other, although our intents are so similar. And we spoke at length for hours, and the same passion. And these are all people who want to bring about change. So one thing that we are trying at Studio World is to see if we can change our approach to this, to calling ourselves urban designer, calling ourselves landscape architect, calling ourselves architects. And we sort of are in a culture where we label all of us with something.
Mhm.
We need to come at a place where we talk to everyone, and we sort of, what is center? Why are we here? We are here so that we could bring about change. And we have to do whatever it takes, right? So I'm going to do landscape architecture if I need to. I'm going to take up architecture if I need to. I'm going to be a socialist if I need to. I'm going to do whatever it takes if I want to bring play to everyone. And if I so that is a big mind shift that we need to embrace, which is happening through social media in a very interesting manner. And this is all through sort of people are connecting so much more on causes rather than their
Disciplines, or
disciplines.
yeah, true.
Um, and this cause can bring us together. So we might not have 100 studio pods, but we might have 100 studio pod like change makers, thousands of them, and might not have been urban design practices.
Yeah.
Because it is so presumptuous to assume urban design can change the world, which I do think it's possible, but still, I'm gonna. But it is really this could bind a lot more people to come together and make it into a movement, not just architects. This is the whole utopian feature of, back in the day, architects felt that we will change the world. Now we urban designers will change the world. It's not the case. I think
We
if it
together.
were to be a movement, we need to speak to a much larger audience. We need to sort of, and I think social media has played a very big role. People follow us on social media. They are in the field of water. They are in the field of sanitation. They're in the field of sort of horticulture. They're in the field of anything to do with cities. So urban designers have a unique sort of advantage that we talk about cities and everything, and we should embrace it, that anything and everything that happens in a city is our business. And if that is the case, so many stakeholders to engage with. And if our content spoke more about cities, the love for cities, the functions and systems of cities, we will break these barriers, whether this is urban design or whether this is city planning or architecture or not. We don't even know how
Absolutely.
much we could sort of connect with so many more people if we just break away these shackles that we've created in our head, and we've been conditioned to think like this for a while. But I think it's very important to be at it and sort of think about cities more importantly of. And at that very forum there were so many people who were trying their best to see what can be done for the cities of India. It was like, how are they different than I am, right?
Correct.
So
Absolutely. So inspiring, and I think it's a perfect wrap up for this conversation. We started with Swades Mansi, that that's the point when we felt that I think it was almost let's go back and how can we improve our cities, and we are finishing also this note that let's be humble and collaborate with there are many like us who are here to kind of with an intention of improving India's cities. And I think urban designers have a role there, definitely, in bringing everyone together and on and bringing these conversations on. And I'm very sure and very optimistic that in the coming decades we will definitely, I think, see many more coalitions and firms and practices coming together with this agenda of let's shape India cities. So thank you so much. It's been very inspiring and a fun conversation for me. And I think thank you again so much for being here, Mansi, Sarfaraz, and Mahesh.
Thank you,
it was
Mani,
our
for
pleasure.
inviting us. It was such a fun morning.
And thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an update. See you next time on Shaping Cities.